Erev Tov, Shalom Aleichem, and a guten Erev, Erev Yontif, with the holiday of Shavuos coming up tomorrow evening. And as we always bless each other with Kabbalah Sater, B'simcho B'pnimius, we should receive the Torah with joy and inwardness. On this week's story, since the Shavuos is correlated with the passing of the Ba'al Shem Tov, it's a famous concept to tell stories of tzaddikim all year long, and it's stories that have to do with all faculties of life. And when we're talking about the Ba'al Shem Tov, especially, there's no question that it's important to go into tell a story of the Ba'al Shem Tov, the eve of his Hilula, the eve that we celebrate his day. And this brings us a connection with the Ba'al Shem Tov, and thus when we receive a connection with the Ba'al Shem Tov, we also have all the blessings, begashmius, ruchnius, materially and spiritually, from the Ba'al Shem Tov's, and a connection with all his studies on a good and revealed basis, and to bring us Be'ezras Hashem, the Geula Hashlema V'Amitis, the true and the complete redemption, Teichef Umiyad Mamish. Our story starts out with a concept that is quite well known by people at least in our day and age, and this is the custom that the Ba'al Shem Tov had to go from town to town, from village to village, and to ask people in regard to their well-being, and to receive the answers of Baruch Hashem, thank God, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shmei. May his name and may he and his name be blessed. Ishtabach Shmo Lo'ad. May his name be praised forever. But many of us are not familiar with the source of where the Ba'al Shem Tov received this type of a hanhoga, this type of a behavior. The Frierdiker Rebbe brings in his writings a story about the Ba'al Shem Tov. He also tells a short background, so that we'll be able to be knowledgeable about in regard to who we're speaking. And the Frierdiker Rebbe brings the famous history of the Ba'al Shem Tov, that when he was a boy of 5 years old, so he was orphaned from his father and his mother, and his father, before passing on, gave him two very accurate and precise instructions. One was to love each and every Jew, no matter who the person is, and no matter where the person comes from, whether we know the person or we don't know the person. And second of all, was not to fear anything other than Hashem himself. And with this, the Ba'al Shem Tov began to live his life. He was living by people that took him in as an orphan, and as he would go to Cheder, and study by the Melamed, he would go and he would review his studies where? Not on a park bench, but he would go out to the forest. The forest, which was usually empty, didn't have any people walking around there, and this is where he would practice, review all the studies that he learned that day in Cheder, and such a conduct he had for 2 years, until one day when he went out to the forest. And he was reviewing his studies. He saw an amazing thing, an amazing sight. He saw a person that was covered with a talis and tefillin, and this person was davening. But the person was not just davening; it was like a very godly chant. It was literally as though this person was standing right in front of Hashem. And the davening was so sweet. The Ba'al Shem Tov was quiet in his place in the forest, and he just observed this person davening. When the person finished davening, the person took out a Torah book, and he started to study. And even the words as the person studied were so sweet. The Ba'al Shem Tov felt that he could literally see the words as they were being said by this holy person. The Ba'al Shem Tov had no doubt in his mind that this is certainly one of the Lamed Vav Tzadikim Nistarim, one of the 36 hidden, concealed, righteous people of the generation. And he continued to be quiet until finally this person took he folded up his talis and his tefillin, and he was about to go when the Baal Shem Tov stepped forward, and he looked at the person. This person looked at the Baal Shem Tov, a young boy then of 7 years old, and he said, "Aren't you afraid to be here in the middle of the forest by yourself, alone?" And the Baal Shem Tov looked up and he said, "No." And he told him that this was one of the instructions that his father gave him, that he shouldn't have any fear from any person other than Hashem. And he said, "And why do you come out here to the forest?" So he said, "It comes out to the forest in order to go into and to study the Torah that he learned in Cheder that day." He said, "Aha." And then this person said, "Come. In that case, we'll sit down to learn." And the Baal Shem Tov, as it's told, the Baal Shem Tov said the person took out of his bag the tractate of Psachim, tractate of that speaks about Passover, and he sat down and started to learn with the Baal Shem Tov. After they concluded their study, the person got up to go, and he invited the Baal Shem Tov to come with him. And this was the beginning of the Ba'al Shem Tov's wandering episode. He started to wander with this person from place to place, from town to town. And all the time that he was wandering with this person looked after him, gave him food to eat, gave him what to drink. He looked after him, even in regard to the clothing that he should be, that he needed to be able to be well clothed. And this is something that the Baal Shem Tov was in total surprise, because this person wasn't collecting tzedakah, he wasn't collecting alms, and he always had enough in order to go and to supply the needs of the Baal Shem Tov and himself. Until finally one day the person went, and he took the Baal Shem Tov out to the forest. And in the forest, he said, "I'm taking you to a very special place." And they came to a house in the forest, and this house belonged to Rav Meir. This was apparently another one of the Lamed Vav Tzadikim, Nistarim, the hidden Tzadikim, of the 36 hidden Tzadikim. And this person said, "I'm going to leave you here by Rav Meir in order to continue your studies. And he will be taking care of you from now on." Rav Meir continued the studies with the Baal Shem Tov, and there the Baal Shem Tov had unbelievable experiences, because he was actually learning the teachings of the Kabbalah, and he was able to study and practice the concepts of davening and all the names of Hashem, the unifications of Hashem's names and the permutations of Hashem's names. And this was something that the Baal Shem Tov never knew in his life even existed. And so as the years went by, Rav Meir would go into town, and the Baal Shem Tov would go with him, and the Baal Shem Tov would observe the fact that Rav Meir didn't let anyone know that he was a learned Jew, let alone one of the 36 tzaddikim, and he would go from place to place, and do things in the town, and then he would come back home. Once the Baal Shem Tov went out, and he was in a tavern, he was in a pundak, And in the tavern it was two Jewish people, Rav Yaakov and Rebbe Zlata, and the Ba'al Shem Tov heard them going and saying, when they were asked how they are and how things are going, here the Ba'al Shem Tov heard them repeat Baruch Hashem and Yishtabach Shemo, and may Hashem's name be praised. Baruch Hashem le'elam amen. May Hashem be blessed forever. And he was listening to them saying these wonderful praises of Hashem, even though he knew that they weren't learned, but they were very committed Jews, but they didn't know too much of the learning of the Torah. He nevertheless he respected them, and then when he left the tavern, he went back to the forest. All of a sudden, he had a gilui, he had a revelation of Eliyahu Ha'Novie. Now, this was something that was not exceptional in general, because in the other places where the Ba'al Shem Tov was, by other tzaddikim, he also, on occasion, had the revelation of Eliyahu Ha'Novie, but he never had a revelation of Elijah the prophet by himself, alone, one-on-one. Okay? And Eliyahu Ha'Novie, as he reveals himself to the Ba'al Shem Tov, he tells the Ba'al Shem Tov the following words. He says, you came from the tavern just now. Ba'al Shem Tov nods to affirm the words of Eliyahu Ha'Novie. And he said, and you met, Rav Yaakov and Rebbe Zlata, the owners, the keepers of the tavern. And he says, yes. And he says, well, with all your studies and all your knowledge, Kabbalistic knowledge of the permutations and the unifications of Hashem's names and so on, you should know one thing, that in heaven, when Rav Yaakov says Baruch Hashem, blessed be Hashem, or when Rebbe Zlata says Yishtabach Shmo La'ad, that Hashem's name should be praised forever, this causes greater rash. This causes greater noise, a greater excitement in the heavens, more than all your new unifications and permutations of Hashem's names. When the Ba'al Shem Tov heard that, he was awestruck. He couldn't even believe what he was hearing. That when they say Baruch Hashem, this causes greater excitement in heaven than all the Kabbalistic teachings that he was learning for all these years till now. But this is something that he went and he not only took seriously, but he went and he committed himself to this behavior, the behavior that we just mentioned at the beginning of the story. This revelation that the Ba'al Shem Tov had of Eliyahu Ha'Novie was at the age of 16, and it was a very special birthday for the Ba'al Shem Tov. We know that the Ba'al Shem Tov was born we know that the Ba'al Shem Tov was born on Chai Elul, the 18th of the month of Elul. But over here, we're talking about the day of his passing. And here we see that in regard to the Ba'al Shem Tov's 16th birthday, this revelation was the revelation that literally brought about a revolution in the entire Jewish world, in regard to the relationship to Judaism, and even more important, the relationship to our fellow Jew. From here on, and this is where the concept comes from in regard to the Ba'al Shem Tov's teachings, from here on, from the time that Eliyahu Ha'Novie taught him how important and how awesome it is for a Jew to say Baruch Hashem, the Ba'al Shem Tov made it his personal quest to go from town to town and from village to village in order to go and bring about the acknowledgement of the praise of Hashem. In regard to the acknowledgement of the praise of Hashem, and with this we're going to finish our story, Bayamim Hahem Bizman Hazeh, in those days, but at this time, we are told, and the Rebbe comes and tells us that when Hashem goes and performs miracles for us, we should acknowledge the miracles. And the Rebbe says in a very interesting phraseology, the Rebbe says we should not be embarrassed to go out and to dance in the streets in order to go and to advertise and to publicize our great thanks to the Holy One, blessed be He, for the miracles that He has done and that He is doing for us right now at this very moment. And everyone obviously knows what we're talking about. And just to make sure that everyone does, we're talking about the beginning of the freeing of the heroic freeing of the hostages that were sitting for almost 8 months now in captivity in Gaza, and we see that it began, Baruch Hashem, this beginning of going and having pidyon shvuim, the freeing of those that are in captivity, the freeing of our hostages and the returning of our hostages home. This is something that we've been going on and on for months and months now. And every single notification that's sent in regard to our class, in regard to our gathering, in order to go and to sit down to study Torah, we mentioned the hostages. And finally, Hashem has brought to us the beginning, the opening of the tzinor, as it's called in Hasidic philosophy, the opening of the pipeline of the freeing of the hostages. And so we are literally with the great amount of happiness and joy. We want to go and to say to Hashem, Heidu la'adinoi kitev ki la'ilom chazdei, blessed be Hashem, for He is good, forever is His chesed, forever is His kindness. And just as He has began to show us His kindness in regard to the releasing and the returning, the heroic victory of freeing these hostages from those that took them into captivity. So we should see the continuation of all the hostages being freed from captivity, from being hostages in a happy and joyous manner. By the way, if anyone noticed, and this is something even more amazing about the freeing of the hostages, all the 4 people, the woman, and the young lady, and the other 3 men that were freed, all these 4 hostages, you see them smiling, you see them literally enjoyed, you see them happy. One would think after being in captivity 8 months, they would be totally off their rocker. They probably would lose their minds. This is a miracle within a miracle, that Hashem preserved them, and they look they look as though they're in good situations. Even though there's no good situation after being, God forbid, in captivity, even for 1 hour, for 1 moment, the things the atrocities that they went through. But this is the beginning of the Geula protest, the personal Geula of each and every Jew in Eretz Yisrael, in Gaza, in the entire world. And this is the beginning of the Geula Shlema V'Amitis, the true and the complete redemption, with the revelation of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach on a good and revealed basis. Teichef umiyad, mamesh, mamesh, mamesh. Oy v'somachto, oy b'chagecha, ve'oy yisach sameach, v'somachto, oy b'chagecha, ve'oy yisach sameach. Hey, la 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 da, hey la da, hey la la da, la 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 da, hey la 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 da, hey la da. Hey la da la da, my ya ya, hey la da la 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 la, hey la da da la la da da, ya ya, hey la da. La 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 la. We want to wish everyone, like as we mentioned, Good Yontif, and Kabbalah Satira, Besimcho, Bepnimius, Good Yontif, Chag Sameach, and receiving of the Torah with joy and inwardness. The way that we go into Shavuos has to have an influence, an effect on all our fields of life and all our factors of the soul, our actions, our speech, our thoughts, and teichef umiyad mamish with the revelation of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach. Yechi Adonenu Moreinu v'Rabbeinu HaMelech HaMoshiach Chai v'Kayam le'olam voed. Amen.